Manx Radio's Update with Lewis Foster.
Faster Mai, welcome along to Update. It's 5 o'clock on Tuesday, the 23rd of July 2024. A glorious day so far, and time for your daily roundup of news on and from the Isle of Man. Coming up, we recap the latest on the assisted dying bill. Women on the Isle of Man who are suspected of having breast cancer are waiting 9 weeks for a referral due to workforce vacancies. How do we future-proof the Isle of Man prison? And the letters posted on Ireland to Manx addresses taking longer to arrive. We'll also keep you posted on anything to watch out for travel-wise. And as ever, your thoughts always welcome. 166 177 or email studio@manxradio.com. First of all, let's join Chanel Suku now for the Man Benham News headlines. Faster Mai, Chanel.
Faster Mai. Members of the House of Keys have voted to approve the assisted dying bill. 16 members were in favour while 8 were against. It'll now ascend to the Legislative Council after the summer recess. Women on the Isle of Man who are suspected of having breast cancer are waiting 9 weeks for a referral. Manx Care has blamed workforce vacancies for the delay and says it's looking into sending people to the UK for assessment. And the Isle of Man Target Shooting Federation says there's been widespread shock that the sport has not been included in the 2029 Island Games on the Isle of Man. It's one of 4 disciplines which will miss out alongside bowls, judo and sailing. In international news, Britain's joint most decorated female Olympian has been pulled out of the Paris Games just 3 days before the opening ceremony. Dressage rider Charlotte Dujardin says she's deeply ashamed about a video showing what she calls an error of judgment while coaching 4 years ago. The head of the U.S. Secret Service has resigned following last weekend's assassination attempt on Donald Trump. Yesterday, Kimberly Cheetle admitted to a committee of politicians that it was the most significant operational failure in decades. And Nestlé says it's going to bring back Caramac bars for one final time. The chocolate maker says calls for its return were heard loud and clear. Those are your headlines. News at 6.
Gromayed, thank you, Chanel Suku there. Now, the weather brought to you by Manx Glass and Glazing. Dry and sunny with generally light northwest winds, minimum temperature tonight of 12 degrees. And generally cloudy tomorrow morning, although some brightness may break through at times. However, it then turns overcast in the afternoon with outbreaks of rain and drizzle arriving from the west. There's also a risk of coastal mist and fog patches developing at times. The initial light southerly wind will freshen in the afternoon and become locally strong in the evening, best temperature of 18 degrees. Then there's a risk of the odd spot of rain at first on Thursday, but otherwise it will be dry with sunny intervals developing later in the day, light to moderate southwest winds and a best temperature of 19 degrees. Sunset tonight at 9:31, sunrise tomorrow morning at 5:19.
Manx Glass and Glazing don't just do the big jobs. It's easy to repair broken greenhouse glass at Manx Glass and Glazing. For greenhouse glass cut to size, call 674 573.
Simply income protection from Kestrel Insurance, a choice of benefits. Simple underwriting and peace of mind with a regular income for up to 2 years if you're unable to work due to illness or injury. Kestrel Insurance is registered with the Isle of Man Financial Services Authority.
Carpetland, the carpet specialist with the island's best value carpets in stock, often fitted within a week. Furnitureland for 3-piece suites, dining and living room furniture, and a selection of amazing beds. Carpetland and Furnitureland, West Street, Ramsey.
Manx Mobility and Onken have it all. Daily living aids, wide-fitting shoes, rise recliners, beds and scooters, including lightweight and airline-approved models. Call in and see how our expert team can make your life easier. Manx Mobility at the top of Summer Hill.
At Bond Fabrics, we're not just a fabric shop. As well as curtains and upholstery and dress and costume fabrics, we've knitting and crocheting wools, made-to-measure curtain and blind service, plus poles and tracks. Visit Strand Street, Douglas, call 611856 or see bondfabrics.im.
You're listening to the Isle of Man's quintessential daily news and current affairs roundup. Update on Manx Radio.
And the time now approaching 5:05. Members of the House of Keys have voted to approve assisted dying legislation on the Isle of Man, which marks the end of a string of lengthy debates. Christian Jones joins us now. Firstly, just refresh us, Christian, on what that actually means.
Yeah, so MHKs have spent the past several months debating in great detail the clauses stage, which allow politicians to make amendments to the core functionality of that proposed legislation. But this vote is significant because it means as far as the House of Keys go, they're happy with this bill in its current form, or should I say, the 16 of them are happy, the 8 who voted against perhaps not so much.
OK, so this third reading means it now ascends to the Legislative Council for MLCs to begin scrutinising the bill. But this is far from over, isn't it?
It can go one of three ways. Either MLCs agree to pass it in its current form, which means it'll go to Tynwald for final approval before it goes to the Ministry of Justice and gains royal assent. Alternatively, they could amend the bill, which means it'll get sent back to the House of Keys and they'll have to debate that amendment again. Or LegCo could reject the bill and say, no, we're not looking at this. That doesn't actually mean that it gets thrown out, though. It just means that Keys could pass it on their own because MLCs no longer have the power to veto a bill.
OK, thank you, Christian. Let's just bring you some of the debate from today, and we'll start with an MHK who voted for assisted dying, Douglas North's David Ashford.
This bill has been under consideration for 13 months now since members first got a copy of the bill. Obviously, we've only recently seen the finalised version of the bill. I made very clear for me what mattered was the safeguards. The safeguards did reassure me. I looked through the bill again one final time last night, and I made the final decision this morning.
Taking to mind, there's no perfect legislation, as you emphasised.
There is no perfect legislation in this area. I think that's shown around the world. There's been debates left, right and centre, but on the basis of what I've concluded, I concluded today that I will support third reading. But there is a caveat in there, which is a lot of the devil is in the detail, and it's in the regulations. And we'll have to wait and see what comes forward with those at a future date to see if those carry my support.
David Ashford speaking to John Mott there, and we'll move to Arbury Castle Town and Maloo MHK Tim Glover now, who voted against.
I was pretty open-minded at the very beginning of it, and I have listened to constituents. I've gone out and talked to people, and in my constituency there is more people who are against this, so I'm that people's representative. I feel it's important I represent the people who've elected me to do that. However, you've got to listen as well to the debate. I haven't been happy. I think we certainly weren't trying to bring this down or make it unworkable. It's been made unworkable because some of the provisions that we brought in were rejected, which would have made it an easier bill to support.
MHK Tim Glover there. So, Christian, what happens next?
Well, like I said, it'll go to LegCo now. Obviously, all politicians are on summer recess, though, so it won't be for at least 3 months before that goes to the upper house. But it is fair to say this is far from completed. There are still numerous stages that could delay proceedings. We've heard from some MHKs that they're going to try and push for a referendum again. Whether that comes to fruition will only be seen if the bill reaches Tynwald. What we do know, though, is MLCs will begin considering this when the summer recess has completed in the autumn.
Christian Jones there. Thank you. The time now 8 minutes past 5. Women on the Isle of Man who are suspected of having breast cancer are waiting 9 weeks for a referral. They should be seen in 2 weeks. News editor Tessa Hawley joins me in the studio now. Tessa, hearing that, this must be a worrying time for many people.
Absolutely, and Manx Care has acknowledged that, saying it's a challenging period caused by vacancies in the workforce. The health body hasn't revealed how many people are currently on the urgent suspected cancer referral pathway and are being affected by this delay. But we do know that Manx Care is currently looking to send people to the UK for assessment so that they can be seen quicker.
That's obviously one way of getting people assessed, but what else is Manx Care doing to rectify this situation?
Well, it's outlined a number of things. Additional breast clinics are going to be held to address those outstanding referrals. Now, those appointments will be offered based on clinical priority and the date of the referral. And it's also trying to recruit. But it's highlighted that there's a shortage of breast radiologists across the UK and says it's currently undertaking extensive recruitment efforts to attract a new permanent consultant breast radiologist.
And so what's the plan for the interim period until that happens?
So we'll be getting a visiting consultant breast radiologist for 2 days a week. Now they're going to see Manx patients on top of their full-time working commitments in the northwest of England. And from the 25th of July, a consultant breast radiologist will be joining the team for 1 day each week, which will support up to 15 patients per week. Manx Care is also trying to source a locum who can work regular weekdays, which will provide a more consistent service. And in addition to that, there's a consultant oncoplastic breast surgeon who's been appointed, and they're going to join the team from the 16th of September.
OK, well, this news out this afternoon, so what's the reaction been like so far?
Well, the Manx Breast Cancer Support Group has described the 9-week wait as unacceptable and not sustainable. But the charity does say it appreciates how difficult it's been for Manx Care to secure even the locum breast radiologist, whilst the full-time post has been advertised.
News editor Tessa Hawley, thank you very much. The time now approaching 11 minutes past 5. An energy transition advisor says wind farms are only a minor threat to wildlife. Speaking on Manx Radio's Man in Line today, David Quirk from the island's Energy Sustainability Centre says the current risk statistics for animals like bats and birds is 1 bird per turbine per year. Previously, we've heard concerns from agencies such as the Manx Bat Group around possible collisions and air pressure changes. However, Mr. Quirk says there are more concerning threats to wildlife elsewhere.
So there's a lot of turbines in Denmark and there's a lot around the world. And if you were looking for the horrible gross statistic, it's about 1 bird a turbine per year, depending where you are. Sometimes it's 0. We have a lot of wind turbines. I've never seen a bird strike in Denmark, but we have different birds, of course, in the Isle of Man. But if you compare it to cars and buildings and all cats in particular, it's such a minor threat to birds. However, of course, if you've got a rare bird that doesn't avoid a large moving blade, then there's an issue. But on the whole, birds are pretty good at not flying into wind turbines. Bats are, again, it's a concern, but they use seismic echo sounding, and they'll see those in most cases. And so, obviously any large industrial structure has an effect, but it's a minor effect compared to the rest of the things we do in our life.
David Quirk from the island's Energy Sustainability Centre speaking on the Man in Line there. Today you can listen back to that appearance via a podcast at manxradio.com. Now, have you noticed letters posted on the island to Manx addresses are taking longer than usual to arrive at their destination? MHK's challenged the chair of the Isle of Man Post Office on the issue in the House of Keys this morning, with some stating they'd heard of mail taking up to a fortnight to arrive. But Stu Peters said only a small number of official complaints had been received and urged customers to contact the Postal Service instead of posting on social media.
Local to local and inbound parcel services, in addition to letters sent by a special delivery, are processed in line with product features and contractual service level agreements 6 days a week, Monday to Saturday. This is the norm. I think that our delivery team often goes above and beyond with mail which is thought likely to be important, but that's simply an example of their goodwill. Anyone posting urgent or time-sensitive correspondence should perhaps consider some form of track service.
Since asking a question a week ago in Tynwald, I have had a big increase in correspondence of emails of people who are affected by posting letters that are on island deliveries taking nearly 2 weeks to be delivered.
It is something that I've also anecdotally heard from people who've written to me. I think that this might be a bit more of a social media phenomenon than a real thing. But I have asked the question of the executive of the Post Office, and they are taking steps to try and make sure that this doesn't happen.
I'm sorry, but I absolutely dispute some of the comments coming out from the chairman this morning from the Post Office. After receiving complaints myself over the last 7 weeks, I actually tried the system myself. On every single occasion, a local letter posted even in Douglas, Ramsey, Onken and Peel, all took 48 hours to deliver. I would encourage the chairman to actually try the system himself.
The post has to be collected, it is then processed that evening and hopefully delivered the next day. If there's any reason that can't happen, then it might take a couple of days, but that is not the norm. And if he would report his experience with customer services as described, they'll look into each and every claim that he makes.
Chair of the Isle of Man Post Office, Stu Peters, MHK, speaking in the House of Keys this morning. If you've noticed any issues sending letters on Ireland, get in touch 166 177 or email studio@manxradio.com and let us know. Turning to the business news on the Isle of Man today. Today is your last day to use Love IOM cards. The hospitality gift cards were launched to encourage people to support the island's pubs and restaurants following COVID lockdowns. Government spent more than £180,000 on the initiative, with £67,000 uploaded to the cards in the first 7 months. As of the 1st of July this year, almost £226,000 had been added to the cards, with £38,000 left to be spent. Now, more than 5,400 cards have been sold, with 77 merchants having signed up to the scheme. The latest stock market report now from Ramsey Crookall. European stocks turned negative this afternoon as investors assessed the latest earnings report from regional companies, and US stocks were flat to higher as investors awaited Alphabet and Tesla earnings later in the day to gauge if the recent market rally has momentum to spare, while United Parcel Service and NXP Semiconductors plummeted after poor results. Oil prices fell for a third consecutive session to hit their lowest in over a month as investors looked past US President Joe Biden's decision not to seek a second term and focused on rising stockpiles and signs of weak demand. A barrel of Brent down 1.87% to $80.68. At the close, the FTSE 100 down 0.36% to 8,167. The DAX up 0.79% to 18,550. The Dow Jones a short time ago up 0.10% to 40,460. The S&P 500 up 0.31% to 5,581. And the Nasdaq up 0.63% to 18,121. Gold up 0.35% to $2,405. British pound sterling trading at $1.291 US and 1.189 euros.
I'm running late again. Do you know where I put my car keys?
In the fridge.
Where's my phone?
Under the dog basket.
Bye.
You haven't forgotten that we're seeing Ramsey Crookall later?
Oh, no, of course not. 5 p.m. is it?
2:45.
I'll be there.
Life is busy. That's why Ramsey Crookall's team takes time to help you make a mindful investment decision, considering all the options, giving you full control of your financial future. Less stress, more assurance.
Forgot to put my shoes on.
Oh.
See how we can make your money work for you. Call 717171 or visit ramseycrookall.com. Licensed and regulated by the Isle of Man Financial Services Authority.
You're listening to the Isle of Man's quintessential daily news and current affairs roundup. Update on Manx Radio. Manx Radio Travel, driven by Quayside Tyres and Service Centre.
Starting on the roads in Douglas until the 3rd of September, Annika Road is closed between Bearcam and Close Kennish for resurfacing. In Laxey, temporary lights on Pinfold Hill near the turn for Lonnan Church Road, 24 hours a day for work on the pavement. And temporary lights on Ramsey Road in Laxey as well at the Menorca Hill Junction, 24 hours a day for drainage work there. In Ramsey, until the 26th of July, that's Friday, temporary lights on May Hill, 24 hours a day for patching work. In Foxtall, until the 23rd of August, temporary lights on the main road through the village near the Mines Road turn, 24 hours a day for property repairs. In Castletown until Saturday, temporary lights on Arbury Road, 24 hours a day. And in the south, the Balakilawi Road and the Slock will close again tomorrow between 9:30 and 3:30 for the installation of road studs. The closure will be from the Russian roundabout through to the Round Table. No problems to report from the airport today. All flights this evening due in and out on time as well. And on the sailings, the Manannan will be arriving in Liverpool in the next 20 minutes or so. Meanwhile, the Manxman is due back into Douglas from Heysham at 6 o'clock on the dot.
Ask how you can spread the cost interest-free at
And And the time now approaching 5:20. Conversations have started about how the Isle of Man can future-proof its prison. A 66% rise in the number of prisoners has seen 24 new temporary cells created in portable cabins. News editor Tessa Hawley joins me again now. Tessa, are these new cells in operation yet?
Not quite. So we spoke to the prison governor yesterday and he's confirmed that they are now equipped with electricity and the fire alarm system has been tested. But Leroy Bonnick says they'll also have to undergo a full search, and that's because of the number of outside personnel who've been working on them. And I can confirm that despite the very wet weekend we had, there have been no reports of any issues with leaks.
And just remind us why this new wing has been created.
So effectively, it's in response to a huge surge in demand at the Isle of Man prison. The population has risen dramatically and, in short, they're running out of space. Yesterday morning, 135 prisoners were unlocked and the building only accommodates 141, so it's getting tight. J-Wing will house male prisoners only, and I did ask why the existing single occupancy cells couldn't be doubled up and was told there isn't enough space in the cells themselves.
So do we know when they'll be ready?
Well, the short answer is no, but what we do know, however, is that they'll be used to house offenders who are deemed as low risk, those who require minimal supervision, and the people that are already working out in the community. But with no crystal ball about who might offend in the near future and with very little wiggle room, I asked the prison governor what would happen if we reach capacity before the new cells are ready.
Well, I'd like to think we don't, but you've always got to plan for the worst. I do have the authority as the governor to obviously enforce what we call executive release. And again, prisoners with, less than 28 days left to serve, they would be suitably risk assessed. But I'll quickly add that does not apply to violent offenders. Sex offenders would not meet that criteria in terms of being eligible to be considered. And I say, that's a key word, being considered. There's a rigorous risk assessment that goes out that these people can safely be reintroduced back into the community. Now, in recent times we have released one or two, and we're talking 8-10 days left in their sentence to serve. In terms of that, I've not got to the situation where I've had to release somebody who still had 28 days remaining on their sentence.
We've actually seen that seems to be the way that the UK may look to go, because we know that their prisons are over capacity as well. You've mentioned there that obviously it would only be considered where there's a very short term left to run. Would it ever be an option to release prisoners with more time left and have those conversations? Have you had to have those conversations yet about what could happen further down the line if the population just continues to increase?
No, in answer to your question, it's not something that we're looking to do. What we do, we project who's due for release and discharges in the coming weeks, months, 6 months period, and try and obviously stay ahead of the game in terms of managing the population pressures.
Tessa Hawley speaking with Leroy Bonnick there.
You're listening to the Isle of Man's quintessential daily news and current affairs roundup. Update on Manx Radio.
And the time now 5:23. The Isle of Man Target Shooting Federation has expressed its disappointment at not being included as one of the 14 sports for the 2029 Island Games on the Isle of Man. The sport has so far featured in every game since the inaugural event here in 1985. Speaking on behalf of the Federation, Nathan Holden explains what the reaction was like to knowing they won't be a part of a home event in 5 years' time.
Well, to be honest, I think there was widespread shock, a bit of bewilderment. Shooting has been an ever-present sport at the Island Games up to now, and given the history of shooting in the Isle of Man and the success that we have on the international stage, we've also won over 180 medals for the Isle of Man at the Island Games in shooting.
What criteria, if any, do you feel that shooting fulfilled?
We don't feel that we really failed completely on any of them. This question of venues being too far away from Douglas, I think there was only one location right at the north of the island which would have potentially posed a problem. But they also looked at the costs of facilitating, but our projected costs were very low. I'm sure it would have brought more to the Isle of Man economy than not. One of the things that the Isle of Man looked at was the male to female ratio. I think in terms of the Isle of Man team composition, shooting provided, the fifth highest number of female entrants, third highest if you're looking at just the individual events. We had a lot of success as well with women. The youngest individual female medalist for the Isle of Man at the last games was a shooter at age 16. So I think by focusing just on the ratio, I think we've kind of, it's not really taken in the full context.
Between now and 2029, there will be 2 more Further Island games. What is the shooting side of things for those 2 games, as far as you know?
Orkney, unfortunately, the shooting over there is withdrawn. Faro, to the best of our knowledge at the moment, is that there will be shooting in some form, but I believe that's still to be confirmed. So I think we're going to have to kind of look at ways that we can, try and bridge that gap, because it is really important for our local athletes. There needs to be something that they can aim for. It's a difficult one for our sport at the moment. I think we're going to have to kind of go back to the drawing board a little bit.
Nathan Holden from the Isle of Man Target Shooting Federation speaking with Manx Radio's sports editor Rob Pritchard there. Minister for Education, Sport and Culture Daphne Kane has previously stated she sympathises with the sports not chosen, but that selection criteria was made clear. Well, Rob Pritchard joins us now with a recap of today's sporting news. Fast am I, Rob?
Fast am I, Lewis. Well, we'll start with tennis, and Isle of Man pro competitor Billy Harris has been in action in the United States this afternoon. He's taken part in the first round of the Atlanta Open against Russian opponent Aslan Karatsev, with a place in the last 16 in the men's singles up for grabs. Unfortunately, Harris, in the last 30 minutes, has been beaten in straight sets 6-2, 6-2. The former Albany and Kazakhstan member, currently the British number 4, is at a career-high world ranking of 114 right now and made his Wimbledon debut earlier this month. Elsewhere, FC Isle of Man in the last few minutes has confirmed its full fixtures scheduled for the 2024-25 NWCFL Premier Division season. The Ravens' first contest, which was previously announced in late June, will be at home at the Bowl in Douglas against Chadderton this Saturday at 6 p.m. The 42-game campaign will conclude with a home fixture against West Didsbury and Chorlton on the 19th of April 2025. Among the other notable ties, the Manx side will welcome last season's promotion playoff runners-up Bury FC to the Bowl on Saturday, the 7th of September, with the reverse fixture at Gig Lane scheduled for Saturday, the 11th of January 2025. Elsewhere, the away tie against West Didsbury and Chorlton, which has been popular with supporters in the past, will be one of the early fixtures in the season on Tuesday, the 20th of August. Well, between now and the end of August, the Island side will also welcome will play against 2 of the newly promoted sides into the division, with an away trip to FC St Helens on Tuesday, the 13th of August, and a home showdown with Stockport Town on Monday, the 26th of August. All fixtures remain subject to confirmation, and FC Isle of Man is advising supporters to be aware of this before making travel arrangements. You can view the full fixture list at manxradio.com. And finally, in motorsport, thousands of euros have already been raised to help a rider injured at this year's Southern 100 road races. Anthony O'Carroll was involved in an incident during the newcomers' familiarisation lap on the opening day of this year's meeting on the Blown course on the 8th of July. Well, as of yesterday evening, more than €31,000 has been donated to help Anthony and his family, surpassing the original target of $30,000. And Mr. O'Carroll's team at this year's Southern 100, Team ILR, adds they continue to hold Anthony and his family in our thoughts and prayers.
Grow my head. Rob Pritchard, thank you very much. And that's it for Update this evening. As always, you can listen back via the podcast at manxradio.com. Up next, Kiri and Simon are back with Countryside, and after 6 we have Greatest Hits with Chris Kinley. Enjoy the weather if you can tonight. I'll be back with Update at the same time tomorrow.